Hey, everybody. This week's podcast is here. And yes, I'm back. And yes, I'm releasing it a day late, and I'm so sorry for that. So I'll tell you, this week's guest is my very good friend, Scott Adams. Now, most people would say, who's Scott Adams and why do I care? Well, Scott is one of thousands of incredible session players, session musicians across this great country of ours, and he's sort of a mini local legend. He's been in hundreds of bands. He's been on hundreds of records. He's the Hal Blaine of saxophone. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, well, I don't care, that's not something I'm interested in, I would tell you to listen to this podcast strictly because he tells some really, really hilarious stories. He knows a little bit of everything, and he knows a little bit of everyone. And whether you like listening just to the local cats or you like the big international legends, chances are Scott's rubbed shoulders with them or played on stage with them or hung out with them. So his sort of story pool is pretty endless. This podcast, the recording and interview was very, very, very tangential. By far the most of anything I've done. And you know, something about that really works. This one especially. This was my favorite interview so far, not to belittle any of my previous interviews, but this one was just kind of wild and crazy. And so anybody who's been listening to these podcasts, if you like the last ones, well, you'll really, really dig this one. I think this one goes down some really, really fascinating roads / wormholes. In addition, about 3/4 of the way through, Scott shares an amazing story that I literally had no idea. Sort of a life experience he walked through that was really, really profound. So with that, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for bearing with us. Thanks for being patient, letting me release this podcast a day late. And I think you're going to dig it. So rock and roll, heavy metal, saxophone. Right on. So now it's officially all of a sudden like it's on,
right?
And we like don't have anything to say.
Nope, no idea.
Scared. Spend our lives in front of a microphone, and we're all of a sudden like, crap, I don't have a thing to say.
So you know that was the most terrifying thing about King Jr. was not having the saxophone.
Yeah,
that was because even though you're still kind of naked when you have the horn. You're really naked when it's just you and the mic, and like all of you won't be able to blame sucking on the reed or
yeah, no doubt. Well, the thing that people don't know is King Jr. was one of those short-lived and possibly long-lived things, meaning hopefully we'll do something again, but Scott came up with this great idea a couple of years ago to put together a group of eclectic and established local Seattle area musicians that he had worked with over the years to put together this really great band that did different stuff. And maybe you can tell everybody what King Jr. was supposed to be about.
Well, so like the conceit of the band was that it was my iPod on shuffle.
Nice.
Which is a scary, scary place to be. Like I used to do construction and I would have my iPod on and just be working, you know, and I would get in a nice groove with some R&B, some Tower Power, Earth, Wind and Fire, and then immediately the next song would be like Fucking Hostile by Pantera. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And that would be the perfect thing to hear live, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, what did they just play Black Sabbath?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so you know, the set list was Sly and the Family Stone and Jason Mraz and Tower Power, but then it was Black Sabbath and
Living Colour
and Foo Fighters and Living Colour and Brecker Brothers and whatever.
Yeah.
Just whatever.
Those rehearsals were a blast.
They were really fun.
And then well, I ended up moving to Japan.
Well, yes.
And that didn't help.
No.
And then it was just so hard to get it when you're talking about, what was it, 11 piece, right?
11 pieces, yeah.
So imagine like being, I don't know, in the Cherry Poppin' Daddies or one of the big sort of horn-based bands.
Right.
And it's so hard to get a 5-piece band together, let alone an 11-piece band.
Yeah.
Everybody's schedule, because let's face it, most professional musicians, and I'm putting quotes around the word professional, are teaching. You know, they have students, or they have quote unquote day jobs, right? So getting everybody together and then asking them to drive like 40 miles to Falls City to play, because that's where the drummers crap was, right? So that was really, really tough.
Yeah.
So, but I hope we can get it back together, because admittedly I'm selfish and I want a chance to play live with all those great guys, man.
Yeah.
And I loved listening to you sing. It was so much
thanks,
fun,
man. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was just, I have a day job too, and my job gets progressively more and more intense. Every year that I do it, and it was really like, I mean, I developed a newfound appreciation for all the band leaders that I've worked with over the years, because holy crap, it's like the worst project management nightmare I've
right.
Right.
It's like the difference between being an actor and being a director.
Right.
All of a sudden you're responsible for everybody, and everybody complains to you on top of it.
Right.
So what were they saying about me?
Dude
can't play.
No, I don't think anybody said anything about you. No.
Dude is not committed, can't play, and talks about Jesus all the time. Dude, we're in a church. We're rehearsing in a church, and Dan's in there saying "fuck" every 5 seconds. And I was like, my pastor is going to just be freaking out. But I love it. I loved it. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I did get to play "Sexy Motherfucker" in the church, though, which was pretty cool.
That is pretty weird. And the funny part is Rick came over. So Rick is the pastor of the church we were rehearsing in. It's a good friend of mine. And he didn't tell me until a couple of days later, but he's like, man, I was listening to your band outside. I was sitting out in the sun and just listening to it, and you guys were so, so good. He's like, eclectic choice of songs.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah, that was a really strange thing. It's funny how that works, that whether you believe in God or whether you believe church is like somehow like a house of God or something like that, there's this weird cultural thing that says, you probably shouldn't be swearing in a church, right? I mean,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there is.
And, I mean, it just is, because you and I have had like religious discussions, and I think it's really cool because we're totally different on different wavelengths about it. But at the same time, it's not like this weird pious or anti-pious thing. It's just like, dude, you're a rock star. I love you, and I don't want to say I don't care. Of course, I care, but I don't care about your like religious preferences, because it's a preference. Right? It's like kind of like, hey, that girl's really hot.
Right. No, I don't like that.
But you know what I mean? But it is funny how you get in church, all of a sudden you're rehearsing and everybody feels like they kind of gotta, And I remember when we were rehearsing that song, there was like a, I mean, literally, it was literally like sexy, you know?
You're a sexy mother.
Mother asterisk.
Right.
So look, I'm really, I use the word honored a lot, but you and I have known each other for almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
And we met each other through Matt Shaw.
We did.
And for anybody who knows anything about the Seattle music scene, Matt Shaw was this sort of, again, let's use the word eccentric music producer / engineer / horn player.
Yeah.
And had been around in town for years, and I'll tell a story in a bit, but he was a guy who just liked to connect cats with cats, and he thought I'd be a good fit for a band that Scott was playing in. I'll let you tell the story about that band. But we lost Matt a few years ago to basically cancer in his head, right?
Yeah,
blastoma.
Glioblastoma. Yeah.
Yeah, which is terrible. It seems like all the influential producers I know, with the exception of Jonathan Plum, have passed away from some sort of terrible thing in the past 5 years. But all that being said, we met each other because of Matt Shaw. And I met a lot of cool guys with Matt Shaw.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely.
You know,
I
Sean Boots with Amateur Lovers.
Nice.
A lot of cats, really great.
Yeah, I mean, I got to play with Slash from Guns N' Roses because of Matt.
Yeah.
He, let's see, who was it? Pamela Moore was booking the Phoenix, and Slash was playing with his blues ball at the Phoenix above ground, and she called Matt. Because she knew Matt, everybody knew Matt, and she's like, "Yeah, he's a sax player, can't come up from L.A. Do you know anybody who'd be a good fit?" And Matt was like, "Yeah, Scott would be a good fit."
Yeah.
And
what year was that?
Oh man, that must have been 96, 96, I think.
So right after the Ann Wilson thing.
Right after the Ann Wilson thing, yeah. 96, 97. I'm trying to think exactly when that was.
'Cause that's when I met him. I met him in 97. Because I met you shortly after.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Ogre started or I joined in 98, something like that. So,
okay. So let's I know we're going to, the best part about this, Scott, is it's a free-for-all, man.
Right.
So we can talk about anything. And the thing is it gets going. So eventually we'll get to this place where we're just, what the hell, whatever.
Oh, well, I mean, I think really good conversations are stream of consciousness anyway, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
just...
I don't want to know everything about you. Not yet. Well, I mean, I want to learn now. I didn't want to know before. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, everybody. This is Scott Adams. Scott Adams, a friend of mine, great musician, great player, very influential musician. Had a lot of opportunities to play with a lot of killer musicians around the world over the last 20 years, and living in the Seattle area. So he and I are still friends. Had a chance to go see Babymetal a couple weeks ago.
So awesome.
So awesome. For anybody who hasn't seen Babymetal, find a way. Even if you hate that kind of music, just trust me, it's so over the top and insane and weird. And if you like musicians at all, just music in general, even if you hate heavy metal, you will love Babymetal because the band is so insanely talented. Like, it's unfair how musically just mechanical and yet not mechanical, right? Like, they're so precise in their abilities,
right? And
yet human. It felt really real. It didn't feel mechanical. Can't. Maybe I'm not explaining it right, but it was killer.
No, that was a good explanation, I think. Yeah, I mean, it like any
super rehearsed.
Anything that's like fast and precise like that. There's two ways it'll sound, right? It'll either sound like humans making that noise.
Yeah.
Like, I think about, Perry King from Slayer or Kirk Hammett from Metallica, and those guys are super like human players. Like, they sound like it's a human being doing it. And then, or it can sound really mechanical. And I'm trying to think of a really mechanical sounding player, but I don't know. Maybe
Vi's a very mechanical.
Yeah, or Malmsteen or something like that.
Yeah.
Where
lots of notes.
Lots of notes. Holy God, a lot of notes.
Yeah. Yngwie especially, lots of notes. But but I know what you're talking about. Like, it's almost like it's a Japanese thing too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you know how like Toyotas are just put together. There's a level of precision that even though they're an entry level car, they are a precision made car.
Yep.
And Japanese people, they tend to, whatever they focus on is very much an engineering mindset, which is just break it down, know every nuance, every detail, and then practice it 10,000 times.
Yeah.
And then you can release it to the public.
Right. Well, it's that Kaizen mindset.
Oh,
right?
yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Continuous improvement, and which is, so my Facebook bio or my Twitter bio is just like three little things, right? It's a sax player, process nerd, and sci-fi geek. Those are the three things.
And not necessarily in that order.
And not necessarily in that order.
Yeah. But
I mean, so much of all of my job, right, for the last 4 years has been process improvement. And like, that's what I love. That's what I discovered that I love most. Like, I work in IT now, and I've worked in IT over the years, but what I actually like is I like making work better.
Yeah.
Right? I love, and especially the lean or Kaizen mindset, man, is, that's see, left turn.
Yeah,
right.
No, that's good. That's good. I like left turns. Yeah, we're both looking at the mixer, like, do we got the right levels here? You know, the funny thing is I know people are going, wait a minute. I thought this Scott guy was a professional musician. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
And the answer is, unless you're Bono, you're not. There's just like nobody is really a professional musician. It's
Right.
so hard to make money at it. You know, I shouldn't say I talked to them. I didn't talk to them, but you know, you remember when TLC. You remember the big thing about TLC and the fact that they had sold 9 million records and they were each living on $30,000 a year.
Right. Yeah. They made
$30,000.
30 grand was their take home.
That was their take home on 9 million records. Now, granted, I think on the third year, because the way their you know their record deal was put together, similar to Nirvana's, you know how Kurt hit you know 2 or 3 million, he was living in his car. It wasn't until you know like after the first year and they get the actual sold units, and that's when the labels they've already taken their cut, so then they start paying the artist. You know, I just think it's impossible. I shouldn't say it's impossible. It's highly improbable to make a decent living as a musician anymore.
Yeah. I had a coworker, former coworker, whose son was the keyboard player, I think, in Minus the Bear.
Right. Which is an iconic indie band, man.
Yeah.
Killer.
And she and her husband are both attorneys. And her son came home and said, you know, here's the contract that they offered to us, and she and her husband went through it and were like, nah, I wouldn't sign this. This is a terrible, terrible thing for you guys.
Right.
And it's not even just the reimbursement structure. It's that they own any amount of creative output from you.
Yep.
360
deals is what they call it now.
Yeah. You doodle something on the back of a napkin, and if they can make money off of it, you know, they own it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. I'm listening to that dog in the back.
No, it's okay. There's a dog.
There's a dog. We're dog sitting, and he's driving me crazy.
Yeah, no, it is impossible. The funny thing about record deals, and I had 2 development deals in my life, but I've never had like the big deal, right? Like I've never signed on the dotted line with, say, Columbia or something like that, right? But the developments were always scary because even those felt like they had absolute control.
Yeah.
You know, and there was an experience which I cannot talk about because of an NDA, but there was an experience I had with my band in 2000 where the producer wanted to make changes that were not acceptable. And we ultimately, the best way I can put it, I'm trying to think of a way to, because I want to tell the story so bad, but I know I can't tell the story. But long story short is the producer told us they wanted to make changes to the band, and we balked, and they left and dropped this development opportunity and signed Nickelback. So to this day, every time, so my really, really close friends know the story, and I'll tell you offline. I mean, I think we've talked about it, but I just can't put it on, you know, I can't put it on the internet. I'm sorry. But they all give me crap about the fact that every time they hear Nickelback on the radio, they're like, that could have been Rob. And it may not have ever been. But my old bands, you listen to us, we sound an awful lot like Nickelback. I'm not talking about Ethel, I'm talking about Swerve from 2000.
So you're saying that I can blame Nickelback on you?
Yes, you can blame Nickelback. All the people who've shot themselves in the head because of Nickelback could be alive if my band had been signed in its place. I'm just telling you, and we can blame Rick Parashar because Rick is dead now. And, no, it was a terrible experience. I mean, it was the only time I've ever had that happen where I realized, wow, this is just the beginning, and it sucks. Right, like the music business just chewing you up right from the beginning, and I get it. But you really do, for anybody out there who wants to have a band, you really do have to sell your soul. If you want to make money, you have to sell your soul. You'll never, ever make money being the indie guy who puts it on YouTube. I don't care what anybody tells you. It's a lie. Right? There's an adage out there that says you'll never make money until you make somebody else money first.
Right.
And that's exactly how the record business works.
Well, you know, I mean, so I wasn't prepping for this chat today, but I was thinking about things that I want to talk about. And that was one of the things that I was thinking about today is that, man, I hate trying to make a living playing music.
Yeah.
Like I hated it. Like it was so much work. And that, you know, the fact is that the best I ever did was like 12 grand a year or something, right? That was my best tax year.
Was that the Ann Wilson year?
No, I think it was after that. I mean, 'cause we didn't play often enough to
Okay.
for me to make that kind of dough. No, I mean, it required like playing 4, 5, 6 nights a week.
Yeah, no life.
No life. Just all you do is go from gig to gig, and if there's a gig that you get offered and you can take it, you have to take it.
Yeah.
No matter how you feel about taking that gig.
Yeah.
If it's, oh, you're going to host a jam session on a Wednesday night and you're going to make $50 and, well, I need $50, so let me go do that gig.
It's interesting because my brain right now is already looking at the title of this podcast. And I think it's going to be Scott Adams and then in parentheses, a cautionary tale. Just don't be this guy. But it's funny because when I was living on the East Coast and I was playing music, again, quote unquote, professionally, I was also doing side gigs for other bands on the weekends. Mm-hmm. And I was killing myself for $75 a night.
Yeah.
And working, and people don't realize this either. They think, okay, you made $75. So let's go back to say 1990 when $75 would be maybe the equivalent of $200 a day. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's just be nice and just say it's $200. Okay, mm-hmm. Well that's a good take on a night. I mean, so if you do that 5 nights a week, that's $1,000. I mean, you make $4,000 a month. Okay, well, one, that's if you can get 5 nights a week, which you can't.
Right.
And two, the worst part about this is, especially as a drummer, when you've got gear. Okay, so you got to drive to the gig. So there's an hour. Then you got to set up. That's 2 hours. Then you got to play the show. That's 4 hours. Then you got to tear down. That's an hour, and you got to drive home. That's an hour. So you're telling me 8 to 9 hours is worth $200? You are high. Mm-mm. It's so doesn't make any sense. And people go, well, that's still above minimum wage. Okay,
right.
I can go get an IT job,
right,
and make 50 times that or whatever. I'm not trying to assume you're making $1 bazillion a year, but you know what I mean? You can go get a normal job. And so you really you kind of have to choose music because you love it.
Right.
You can't, I'm not saying you can't make money at it. Of course you can. There's evidence out there that you can. But you know what? The days of Led Zeppelin and Kiss in these giant deals where the artist wields all the power, that's gone, man.
Yeah.
Oh, you can go get laid. I mean, you can go play the You can go play the showbox and then go get a girl and go get high, and you can do all the stupid crap. But if you're in it for that, well, then I don't want to be around you anyway, and I certainly don't want to listen to your band because if that's your focus, then you're kind of a tool, right?
Absolutely.
So let's go back, Scott. Let's tell your story. Let's tell your story. You don't have to go all the way back to childhood, but if it influences who you are, then tell it.
As long as I can remember, I wanted to play music. There was always music in the family. I am the only professional musician in my family, with the exception of my mom's cousin, who's a professional accordion player. I'm not making this up.
That's awesome.
He's great. I went to see him actually on New Year's Eve day, I guess, at the Bumbershoot Casino. Oh, okay. They had for the nursing home crowd or the over 65 crowd, they had a noon Year's Day thing. Yeah. So at noon, that was the countdown they counted down and confetti balloons and the whole thing. Right.
And for all the people that were sleeping.
For all the people who were going to sleep at midnight. And so it was Bert Carlson and his band. And man, he's so good. Like his accordion is like one of those fancy MIDI enabled things. Okay. And he can do he's playing all this crap. And his band was, they were older, but they were good. Clearly, they were like serious cats.
Were they playing polkas?
They played some polkas. They played some sort of pop jazz standards, so things like Satin Doll and New York, and that sort of stuff. Yeah. And he did some straight up polkas, and he did some schottisches. So we're big Scandinavian family. So the schottisch is our jam.
You have to explain that to me because I don't know what that is.
I'm trying to think. Like the Ball and Karlstad schottisch is like the most popular one. It's sort of like a polka. It's sort of like a 2-step polka thing.
Okay. It almost sounds Jewish.
I know, right?
Schottisch.
Sorry. And so it was great. And so but everybody in the family played an instrument. Like my dad played guitar and he played banjo, and my mom played piano and she played accordion. And every time there was a family gathering, we'd gather around the organ and my grandmother would play and we'd all sing. Or like every party growing up at my folks' house ended with all of us around the piano singing, of all things, "You Light Up My Life."
Oh, wow.
I know.
That's Debbie Boone, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's great.
And so when I was like first grade or something like that, a friend of mine wanted to take a night school guitar class, like a group guitar class. And it wasn't like a kid's guitar class. It was adults. It was like at Nathan Hale High School in North Seattle. And it was, and so he said, "Do you want to do it with me?" And my folks were always really supportive. They got me a little 3/4 scale nylon string acoustic,
Nice.
and we sat around and learned how to play "What Shall We Do with the Drunken Sailor" and Greensleeves and all that stuff.
Greensleeves, really?
Yeah, I know.
Why?
I don't know.
My mom had a 78.
It's got like,
slow it down.
It's got like 4 chords in it, so it's an easy beginner guitar too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then we went to. So I did that for a little bit, and I really enjoyed the sound of the E minor chord, and I didn't know why I really enjoyed the E minor chord.
It's almost the saddest of all keys, but not quite.
It's almost, but it's that. Well, we'll come back to that. So then, and so I did that, and then we took piano lessons because we had a piano in the house. So my brother and I both took piano lessons, and then I wanted to play in the school band, and so I just came home from school one day, like 5th grade, and I said, "Oh, I need you to get me a clarinet because I'm going to play clarinet in the school band." And my mom said, "Sure, fine." So I got a clarinet, played that for a couple years. My band director in middle school said, "I need a sax player. Here's the school's tenor. Learn how to play it over the summer." And that was it. And as soon as I played the sax, I was like, "This is really cool."
Yeah.
And I did that through high school. I went to Garfield and took from Clarence A. Cox, and they played in the great jazz program
Yeah,
there.
because they have a really great music program there.
Yeah, I mean, they just took like first or second in the essentially Ellington thing in New York, and it's always been that good.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the West Coast version of a Fame school almost.
Yeah, I played. I played in this band Type A, and our guitar player graduated from Garfield in '79, 10 years ahead of me, and we both had Clarence. We both had A. Cox as our band director, and he's just been there for so long, and Jake just keep churning out these great jazz musicians.
Yeah.
And I went to the U and played at the U. I studied, privately. My folks are always just supportive the whole way, right? They're like,
when you went you made a move that people in the podcast can't see, but when you went supportive, it made me think of like signing checks.
Oh yeah, no, it was totally supportive in that way, right? I mean, so like they bought me the saxophone that I still play. They bought me that as a graduation present from high school. They got me private lessons.
Wow. Your parents loved you.
Yeah. Whatever I needed, they paid for, band trips to
awesome.
all over the place. They're really, really supportive of it. And still, like, it never really occurred to me how you get to be a musician in a band.
Yeah.
Like, I understood how to do it in school. But I didn't really understand like the other thing. Like, I would see guys in bands on TV and stuff, and I didn't understand like how you made that transition.
Right. You mean the dynamic of being in a band, or
just I didn't even understand like it. I only ever understood like playing in an ensemble and being handed a piece of music and playing it. And even though I was learning to improvise and getting better at improvising, like it didn't, like a horn section in a band didn't make sense to me. Like I was just like, I mean, who writes that stuff? Like, where does it come from?
Right.
Did Sammy Nestico write those arrangements for that band? Like, I don't even know. And then I got an audition. I got a call to audition with this band called Molasses.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. And a friend of mine who I've known since high school, we went to a rival high school, but I've known him for, 30 years now. He said, "Oh yeah, you should play this gig, man. You should come out and audition." So I go out and audition, I mean, I look back on it now and I was like, I was terrible. Like, I don't even know why you hired me, but apparently I was good enough to be hired for the band.
Wow.
And that was the first time I'd ever played it. Like, I went in and Molasses, and I'll give you some sound samples so you can, you can play it. But Molasses was like, so it was early 90s. It was 1991, I think, 91, Seattle club scene. It was a 10-piece horn band.
Yeah.
Right? Funk. Original disco funk. It was a terrible time to have a disco band in Seattle.
Yeah. Take off those beanies and grow out your hair.
Right.
So was that a precursor? Because Molasses didn't last long, correct? I mean, I saw you guys got back together a couple years ago.
Yeah. They lasted for, they were like, I mean, because those guys started in high school. So they started in like 88, something like that.
Okay.
And played through to about, I think 93 might have been the last Molasses gig.
Okay.
And then most of them went off their separate ways, but some of them formed Hit Explosion.
Oh, that's so okay. That was what I was going to ask you, because I was wondering if it kind of turned into that, because it reminds me of Hit Explosion.
Yeah. So Harry and George Aragon, Harry Worth and George Aragon, and Keith Ray, the keyboard player,
right,
and then Ron Ray, also no relation, the lead singer. They put together Hit Explosion.
Huh. He's not related.
They're not related.
Oh, I always thought that was like they were brothers.
No.
Oh, that's bizarre.
So wow. I was only in Molasses for about 6 months, and then I went to Korea. So do you know a piano player named Scott Ranney?
I know of.
Yeah. Okay. So his brother Travis is a monster sax player.
Okay.
And I ran into Scott at the pool hall in the hub on UW campus, and he said, "Yeah, I'm going to Korea to play in a band. I'll see you later." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then like 3 months later, I get a phone call from this agent who says, "Hey, do you want to go to Korea and play with Scott Ranney?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Did you say it like that? Like, yeah, I don't need to go, but like kind of you're cool.
No, I don't even remember. I mean, I was just like, I just remember hearing it and being like, yeah, I'd like to do that.
Sure, yeah,
sure.
This might be a chance to actually do something with my skill.
Yeah, and I was living at home, and I was a political science major at the U, and I was going to I had plans to go to law school, after that, and I hung up the phone and I looked at my mom and I said, "So I'm going to go to Korea." What?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So was she excited for you, or actually upset? Like, you might go and be, I don't know, like locked up somewhere.
She was. I think she was. She was concerned. She's like, "Why is this stranger calling my son to, send him to a foreign country? That's a weird thing. Why would somebody do that?" And mom, right? Yeah. And then, I think she was concerned that I wouldn't finish my degree.
Did you?
I did not.
I didn't think so. That's so great. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, sorry about that. I
didn't either, so it's okay.
Yeah.
We're both losers.
And the worst thing is that kids, finish your degree. Just finish it. Yeah. Just go and do it.
It's not about fallback. That's not it.
Just get it out of the way.
Get the degree. Absolutely. Degree.
Just get the degree.
I agree.
So I went to Korea, and I played in the Hyatt, the Grand Hyatt in Seoul, and we played straight ahead jazz 4 hours a night, 6 nights a week.
Wow. What a gig, man.
Oh my God, it was so good. Yeah. It was so good. Like, I just had so much fun.
Yeah. How long were you there?
9 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were you making money hand over fist because of the, like, I don't know, like currency exchange type stuff, or was it just kind of like? It
was a weird thing. Like, we got paid. We had a contract that was in U.S. dollars, so I got paid. It was $1,600 a month, something like that, and they paid us. But they paid us in Korean won, whatever the equivalent was. And so if you went to a bank to do the exchange, you sort of got screwed a little bit. Yeah. So we discovered these black market places that would do currency exchange, and we got a better rate.
Right.
but some of the money wouldn't be accepted by banks. Like some of it was counterfeit. So
wow, really? This is South Korea we're talking about.
This is South Korea, yeah. And so it was 1992. So we would go. It was like totally sketchy place. It was like this nondescript street, and we'd walk down there, and there'd be like this old lady sitting behind a counter inside this little room, and you walk in and you give her the Korean won, and she gives you US dollars, and then you would take it to the bank to get traveler's checks so we could send it home. And sometimes the bills would get kicked back, and we would just use those for like beer money.
Wow, because nobody at the bars is paying attention.
Nobody at the bars is paying any attention at all.
That's crazy. So I mean, I've been to Korea, but I've never had a chance to stay, and I haven't had a chance to really explore either.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I was there for a day, so I just kind of walked around and it was like, okay, it smells. I mean, that was
it summer?
It was May. And it was just starting to get hot, and I had pants on. I just left. I was flying out of Japan, and I was just walking around and sweating. It's so bad. And when I remember when I got back on the plane the next day, I had two red spots on my thighs where my legs were rubbing together from the pants. Because it's just so humid.
Yep.
It was really intense. I'd never experienced that before. But I do remember walking down the alleys of this, this city, because it was on the outskirts of Seoul. I wasn't in Seoul proper, but I was on the outskirts. And there were like, vegetable stands and that whole thing. But it just smelled everywhere. I hate to say it. It sounds so racist, but it just smelled like rotten fish everywhere.
Yeah.
It was garbage. And it was just really, really difficult for me.
When was that?
98.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
But that also was where I was. It doesn't mean, for anybody listening, if you know me, my wife's Japanese and I love Asian culture. So, it's not like some weird stereotype. It's just my experience in Seoul was smelly.
Right.
It was just smelly, man.
I remember the subways in the summertime were particularly bad. Like it was, it just
like
smelled. It just smelled like hot kimchi, right? Inside
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah,
kimchi, just all that cabbage.
Yeah, and I love. I like Korean food is my comfort food. Like I came of age. I feel like I came of age there. I turned 21 my third day there, and
wow.
And like through high school, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke. I was totally goody two shoes. And then I got to Korea my third day, and so I made up for lost time. Let's just
Mom, you're just finding this out, right?
Yeah, I think I've talked to her about this.
So you were there. So you're in Korea, and for 9 months, and then why did it stop? Why'd you come back, or what changed?
I don't know. No, I came home because there was a lot of pressure to come back
from your family,
from my family, to go back to school, finish school, so yeah. There was a lot of pressure to come back and finish school, and we sort of had a difficult relationship with hotel management. Like I think that we felt like we were very successful and made the club a lot of money.
Right.
And I think they felt like we were a product.
Were you all American kids?
Yeah, all American.
So that's a huge thing.
Right.
Asian culture, there's a reason. I know this is a bit of a sidetrack, but in Japan, the anime, all the girls in the anime have different hair colors, and people have asked why. And do you know what the answer is? It's very simple, actually. Do you know why all the girls in Japanese animation have different hair color?
I just assume because it's more Western, right?
Because you can tell them apart.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting? Something as simple as that. Because in reality, in Japan, everybody has black hair.
Yes.
When you walk through downtown Kyoto, everybody's 5'3". There's a sea of bobbing 5'3" black hair. It's insane. It sounds terrible. I'm sorry.
No,
but it's so true.
We had a joke about that in Seoul. We were like, how do they put out an APB for somebody?
Exactly.
How did the police put out an APB? They're like, we're looking for a man 5'6" with black hair, wearing white shirt and black pants.
Exactly, wearing and a black tie.
And a black tie.
It's just getting on a subway or getting on a bus or riding a bike. It's just so. Yeah, it's a weird thing, but that's why they do it. So the reason I'm even mentioning this is because in Asian culture, they love the idea. It doesn't mean they like American culture, but they love the idea of American culture. They love the idea of white people and black people and anything that's not them. Right? Because it's whether it's entertainment or just their curiosity is piqued huge, right? So I wondered if it was because you were these, cute white boys, I mean,
and we were the only all-American band. There were a couple other American musicians that played at different hotels, but we were the only all-American band that was playing in Seoul at the time.
Wow.
And we had different crowds depending on the night of the week. So like we actually inherited a singer with the club. Her husband worked for the hotel, and so she was great. She sang a lot of pop songs.
Right.
And so we said, okay, these are the pop songs of yours that we will play.
There were Korean pop songs?
No, American.
Okay.
I mean, she was Filipino, but her husband was American, I think.
Oh, interesting.
And he was like the manager of the health club at the hotel. Okay. So, and she was a great singer. Loved her. And she, but she was like, these are the songs that I sang. We're like, okay, we're not going to play Wind Beneath My Wings, right? Like, although we had to capitulate to that
that's
one.
a tough one. I had to do that many times.
I have a Pavlovian response to that. Whenever I hear that opening, that DX7, dun, dun, dun,
yeah,
I yawn. Like it's like instinctively I yawn because we played it so many times. And it was so horrible and I hated it.
Yeah.
But so she was great, and she had a following. She sang with the band that was before us, and she had this sort of established following. So she had her fans that would come to see her, but she had Monday nights off.
Oh, okay.
And Monday night was our night that we would just post up on the stage and open our real books and go, let's play that one. I don't know what that is. Let's play that one.
I've never played Pensativa before.
Right. And we would do stuff like that. I got a Charlie Parker Omnibook when I was there, and I worked on like Moose the Mooch and Cherokee and all that stuff, all that bop stuff, trying to, and that Monday night was our night to just experiment.
Right.
And
everything at 208. Just
and we ended up bringing in we brought in originals, we brought in all sorts of stuff.
That's so cool. That had to be an amazing experience, and being in another culture. And, again, I mean, we can all laugh at my proclivity for Asian culture, but the women, just everywhere you look, I'm sorry, there's an awful lot of pretty girls there.
Great Googa Mooga.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, granted, everybody's got their thing. I mean, I definitely have yellow fever. Oh, I love you, baby. I love my wife, my beautiful wife. But it is an interesting thing. I mean, and granted, it's different from Korea to Japan to to China, to mainland China, etc., Hong Kong. It's funny you mentioned though Korea, and when I first met you, this was I don't know if it was right before Stolen Ogre, but you were going, I think, with Matt overseas to
we went to Thailand.
Yeah. Weren't you going like every Christmas for a couple of years, and then you didn't go the year they had the tsunami, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which is, thank God.
Right.
Because you might not be here.
Yeah. Well, we did. We did 3 New Year's gigs in a row. Like 2001. Yes, it was 2001, 2002, 2003.
Yeah, because the 2004 is when it happened. I remember thinking like, oh my God, Scott's there, but you weren't there, were you?
Yeah, we weren't there. And that was super fun. And that was...
The tsunami?
Not the tsunami. Okay. The tsunami was tragic, and we felt terrible for the people there. Yeah. But it was also on the other... It was on the west side of the peninsula. It was where, so Phuket got hit. Where we typically went was in the Gulf of Thailand, which is on the east side of the Thai peninsula. Because they paid us a ridiculous amount of money in cash at the end of the New Year's gig. So the New Year's gig was brutal. It was like 7 hours of playing outside in a tuxedo. I mean, it was in Thailand, which even at Christmas time is
like 85
and like 90% humidity. It's horrible.
You're dying. Yeah, you lose 20 pounds at a gig.
Oh yeah. And they're like, we don't want you to drink. And I'm like, good, because I would be dead if I tried to drink any alcohol
Yeah.
at the gig. Like, it would be horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they paid us in cash at the end of the night. So like I'm getting like $1,200 for one night in US dollars. Like they just stack of money, and I'm like, okay, let's go have a vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was great. And Matt.
Yeah. So can I tell you a Matt story?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Matt Shaw was, as I'd said before, was this sort of local legend trombone player. He was in Type A as well, correct? For maybe a brief period of time.
That's Type A, like the personality, not Type A, like the city.
Yeah. Although it would have been funnier to me if it was, I don't know.
Right?
But anyway, Matt was this great cat. And in summer of '96, I had a band, and things were not necessarily going so well for us right now. So my bass player called me up and said, hey, my dad's company is sponsoring a hydroplane for the Seafair Hydro races.
Oh, right.
And they need a band to play on the float. And so
Sweet.
it was Guan.
Right.
So Guan calls me up and says, hey, and so we put together this little 4-piece band, and we'd played a couple gigs being towed behind this hydroplane, which was killer. Because I mean, it was super fun, and we got to hang out with like all the local celebrities and all that stuff.
Sweet.
But we ended up playing the West Seattle Festival, whatever it's called, West Seattle Days or whatever, in the summer of '96, and we're parked. I didn't know at the time, but we're parked, our pre-parade, we're parked in front of Matt's house. This is how I met Matt.
Oh, right. Yeah. His apartment there up on Admiral.
His apartment on Admiral, right?
Yeah.
So we're sitting there, and it's 7:30 in the morning, and they've got us sound checking in front of all these people's houses. Right, playing these funk beats and everything. And all of a sudden, I see this guy. He's like, hey! And he's like slapping on the side of the float, whatever it is, and I'm sound checking my drums. And he goes, hey, and he's giving me the cut sign. You're like, cut, and I go, oh, I'm sorry, sir. And he goes, no, man. It was opposite. He goes, don't stop. You're badass. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah, no, dude. He goes, you got chops for days. He goes, he hands me his card. He goes, give me a call. And it just says Matt Shaw, producer on it. That's it.
Nice.
It's just a phone number. Of course, it's like kind of almost pre-email, right?
Right.
And it says, give me a call. And I called him up, and 2 weeks later, I'm in Ironwood Studios doing a session. And that's where I met Jimmy.
Jimmy Thomas?
Jimmy Thomas.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
And so my first experience, was Matt and Jimmy, and oh my gosh, and that guy can play the bass. That guy is good, the grooviest bass player in the world, man, and he's so cool. And then Matt got me to the guys in Amateur Lovers, and there was talk about them needing a drummer because they were having problems with the label. That was it Stone Gossard? His label, I can't remember. Stone Gossard's a guitar player in Pearl Jam,
right?
And he had a label, a short-lived label, and they had signed these guys and put them on the road with Ben Folds 5, and so they went down to Australia and played a tour in Australia with Ben Folds, and when they came back, I guess the drummer quit, and so they needed a drummer. So Matt sent me to them, which was killer. And then they broke up.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to do one show, nothing.
Oh, man.
And those guys are so good, the Amateur Lovers. So they did one CD, if you ever want to hear really great, what I call 70s cheer pop. Have you ever heard it?
No.
Oh, my
I don't think I ever heard it.
It's so good. So good. Every song's about like young love and that whole, the teenage boy proclivity to trying to get laid, right? Every song is about trying to get laid, but it's done almost like Partridge Family type music,
Oh, wow.
Fender Rhodes and
yeah.
old school guitars. It's killer.
Nice.
You got to check it out. So maybe I'll put that on the podcast as well. I'm sorry for the sidetrack. So you finished in Korea and you came back because your parents told you, hey, we want you to finish school. Then what? Oh
happened? My God. Then I tried to go back to school and it was just terrible. Like just walking across campus like the 8 o'clock in the morning and everybody's dressing like slobs and
soul sucking.
Yeah, it was just soul sucking. I'm sitting in these lectures trying to like come up with the motivation to pay attention or go. And honestly, I didn't have it. So I just didn't have the motivation to do it. So I played in the jazz band a couple quarters after I came back, and then I got called to audition for this band called Seattle Blues Revue. And that was infinitely more entertaining.
Yeah.
And so through Seattle Blues Revue, which is a great band, man, like depending on the gig, we had 3 or 4 horns and bass guitars, drums, keys, great, like tightly arranged, like really great R&B blues, like
nice.
Chicago style jump blues, that sort of stuff. And it was really cool. And through them, I met, who did I meet through them? Scott Olsen, the lead singer, guitar player.
Yeah. And
Scott Olsen he's another one of those like local legend, like amazing producer and engineer. And he would downplay this, but he's a fantastic guitar player and singer also.
Yeah.
And he just so happened that he worked for Dan and Nancy Wilson in Heart.
Nice.
And so through him, I met, and he actually was the one who gave me the nickname Junior.
Oh, okay. I was wondering where that was. That was coming up.
Because I was the youngest guy in the band by like a long shot. Like I had just come back from Korea, so I was 22, something like that.
Wow.
And I show up for this audition, and I have this like adorable, cute Korean girl waiting for me, in the rehearsal studio. And we rehearsed down at NAF.
Mark's place.
At Mark's place down in
West Seattle.
Yeah, West Marginal Way South or whatever that was.
The weirdest rehearsal studios in the world.
Weirdest rehearsal studios.
But hey, you could bump into Alice in Chains anytime.
And I did.
I did
all
too.
the time.
Yeah. Sean actually came in. One time I caught Sean Kinney, the drummer from Alice in Chains. I went to use the restroom. I came back and Sean's playing on my drums. I'd never met him. I walk in the room. Who's playing my drums? It's Sean Kinney from Alice in Chains. And he goes, dude, I heard you guys rehearsing. Your drums are really badass. Awesome. And then gets up and walks out. I never saw him again.
I ran into Layne Staley a couple different times, and Layne terrified me every time I saw him. Like, he just looked like...
High?
He looked like he looked high. I didn't understand what high was at the time. I would learn, but I didn't understand what high was at the time. And I just saw him, and he always looked like a wreck, like he was some sort of like cave troll.
Yeah.
And he was always fiddling with something. So one time he had a bass guitar plugged into a giant like Ampeg stack, like one of those Ampeg like 610 cabs.
Yeah.
And he just had it like cranked and was just wang, 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 wang.
Yeah.
And then I saw him another time, like he had bought a motorcycle when he was on tour, and he was trying to get it started like in a loading bay at NAFS.
Oh my gosh.
And both times he would both times I walked into the room because I heard this weird noise, and I walked in, and he stopped what he was doing and turned and jerked and looked at me like I had walked in on a raccoon raiding the trash or something. oh shit! Sorry, man.
Yeah, that's what drugs. What do they say? Cocaine is the hell of a drug, but I mean heroin. I mean, dude, that guy was. Heroin. You're not lit on heroin. You're just down on heroin, and he was just broken all day long, every day. It was so sad.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't see him after 95, but I saw him in 95, and he was really sick, and I remember everybody in my band was thinking Layne's going to die really soon. Yeah. Really, really soon. And then he lived until 2003, 2002? I mean, it was a long time.
That's amazing that he lived that long.
I mean, he was high. I mean, high.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Bad high. Never good high. Really broken.
Yeah.
True junkie. He was a true junkie.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we get on this subject? Oh, Mark Nafsey.
Mark Nafsey plays. Yeah,
so you're going to NAF.
So yeah, so we're going to NAF, rehearsing down there with the Blues Revue, and then, I mean, we played. It was a club band. We played clubs and did stuff like that, and it was very successful. And we made good dough, and I met. Who else did I meet through that band? Well, I met lots of people anyway. It was great.
Edit. No, it's good.
I'll punch in some names later.
And you met. And you met Axl Rose and Chris Cornell.
Right.
Yeah. Cool.
I do have a funny Chris Cornell story, but
Okay.
I'll get to that with the Ann Wilson stuff.
Yeah,
So we, Seattle Blues Revue, we broke up. I just became sort of like the village whore, right? Played around town with all these different bands.
Wait a minute. You became? Haven't you been?
I became like, well, so
You stayed.
I stayed. Yes. It's always very, it's very mercenary, right? Being a horn player,
Yeah.
especially
You
because
kill.
you just go play with whoever. And so I like somebody asked me like, what bands have you played with? And I'm like, I don't even.
How about everybody?
Like I know I could write down the names of the bands that I was a member of, probably, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, but like all the different people that I've played with, like I don't even know.
Yeah.
And then the Blues Revue broke up. Then I was in this band Apollo Creed, which is my first sort of like original band. Post Molasses, it was the first time I was in an original band where I actually understood like what that meant, because we wrote these really cool, funky,
That's a killer band.
It was such a great band. We wrote these just funky tunes, man. And it was the band, the rhythm section was so killer, man. I mean, Emmanuel Del Casal on bass and Mark Arrington on drums, and Jason Stasic was our keyboard player, and Gary Stutz was the guitar player. And then we had Snoopy, Paul Lawrence. Yeah. Snoopy up front singing. I love Snoopy to death. And we wrote all these amazing songs together, and it was like, man, this is really good. This is a great band, and it was my first time sort of having my heart broken by a band that was just like full of these really incredibly talented people who were just such fuck ups.
Yeah, which is the case in most bands.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, it is. You know, you get these, and not only were some of them were fuck ups, not all of them were fuck ups, but some of them were really bad fuck ups. But then everybody had these really strong creative ideas that they brought to the band, and somebody has to win at some point.
Yeah.
And that makes the people who don't win feel bad.
Yeah.
And
And when you're an artist, that's all you have is your heart.
Right.
I mean, that's it. They should be called heartists. Seriously,
Oh.
we're screwed. Well, artists are so screwed.
Oh.
We'll never ever be satisfied with life ever.
No.
We're always
No.
searching. I mean, it's like again, if you believe in a creator.
You don't need to qualify it with
No,
me.
I know. I'm doing this because you're sitting there. It's like God tore out the part of you that is satisfied, and
Right.
you're just screwed for eternity, because that's totally what it feels like. I had years ago, my wife said to me, "Oh, well, you're going to rehearse. You just get to go have fun. I get to stay home with the kids." And I was like, if you only knew, I don't want to go rehearse. I have to go rehearse.
Right.
You cannot explain what it's like to be compulsive in a way that you don't want to be about having to do it, because you realize if you don't, well, one, you'll like lose more of your soul if you don't do the work.
Oh my God.
And
yeah.
two, you won't be good enough to ever get anywhere.
Right.
I mean, you have to be really, really badass. You have to really, really be good. There's no such thing as a shitty musician anymore. There isn't. Name one. There
Right.
isn't.
No.
The Bob Dylan days, excuse me to people who love Bob Dylan, but I mean, I shouldn't say Bob Dylan, but because I just like lost half the listenership. I've never been a Bob Dylan fan, but here's the point: the poetry notwithstanding, the days of the guy who can't really hold a pitch, or the days of the guy who are sloppy guitar players. Like, I mean, look, let's be frank. Jimmy Page is a great player, but he's a sloppy great player.
Oh yeah.
He's not, and again, people can go, well, the technically proficient guys like Steve Vai are soulless, and they're right.
Yep.
But guys, if you want to be a session guy like Scott is, or like I was, you got to play, man.
Yeah.
You can't just get by. You have to kill it.
Right. Well, and honestly, like I am not as sharp. My tools are not as sharp as they should be, you know. So I don't actually do session work.
But you did.
But I did.
But
yeah.
you did, and so you were naming all those guys, and all those guys are killer players.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is anybody's listening to this podcast, unless you're local, you don't know who those guys are.
Nope.
And that's so sad, because they are all equals to the Hal Blaines of the world.
Oh God, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Hal Blaine just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and he's a great player. Don't get me wrong.
I would stack. I mean, there's so many drummers that I can think of in this town. You and Mark, and all the guys that I have played with over the years. I've played with a bunch of really amazing drummers, and I'm so fortunate to have done that. And I would stack them up against. I would stack all you guys up against Hal Blaine or any of those session guys, like Kenny Aronoff, who's an amazing drummer.
He's a great drummer.
But I mean, there's guys in town that play that good too.
Yeah.
Tell
Michael Sweet to return my calls.
Okay. I don't know who that is, but
Michael Sweet's the guitar player for Stryper.
Oh,
that's why you don't know who it is.
I remember Stryper.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. No, back in 2000, this is another one of those stories I really shouldn't be telling, but back in 2000, I had a chance. It's just a chance to do some work with Michael. And Kenny got that gig. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh.
So anyway.
Yeah. And so Scott, Scott Olsen turned me on to after Paul Creed split up because we couldn't agree on anything, and it was just too
volatile.
It was just too volatile, man. Like there were a couple times tearing down after a gig that, a couple guys almost got into fist fights, just because they're so intense, they're so passionate about it, and they're just arguing about like what the right thing is.
Yeah.
So that band split up, and I was like, that just broke my heart.
Yeah.
Because it was such a great band, and I was so sad about it.
Yeah.
And then Scott Olsen calls me and says, "Hey, so Ann Wilson is thinking about doing a solo tour, and we wanted to have a horn section."
Ann Wilson of Heart.
Ann Wilson of Heart.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Do you want to come do that? I'm like,
yeah,
I do.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, great. So you're going to be the horn section arranger, and we're going to play. We can't afford to take a horn section on the road with us. So we're going to have you contract a horn section in each of these towns.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, this is like 94, 95. There's like no internet.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know how to find guys in a town.
Yeah.
So the first 5 gigs that we did was a Marlboro sponsored USO thing. We played on military
so you got
bases.
like military guys.
So I got military
Which
guys.
are killers.
Who are killer players. Yeah. Like the first gig that we did was at San Diego.
Yeah.
Naval
So you got
Base.
the Navy band.
So I got Navy band guys.
You probably play with some of my friends.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I wish I remembered their names. I feel bad that I don't. They were so great, and they were such great players.
Fish did this too, by the way.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, because they hired my buddies from the Navy band down in New Orleans.
Oh, right on.
And he played a show with them, and he's like, "Dude, I just heard this band, and they called me up, and he played sax, and sorry, I should get on the mic here." And he said the same thing. He said it was just crazy. They call us up and they just said, "Are you guys good enough?" And then they kind of had us audition, and we checked to make sure, and we could read the parts, and then blam, we're just on stage.
I mean, I didn't even. I just wrote out. So I wrote all these charts. Some of them I didn't have to write. Like I got to use the original chart that Tower Power played on for Even It Up.
Ooh.
I know, it was so cool.
Really? The original.
The original.
Oh my God.
And so we went to, we did the San Diego gig was the first one. And it was the only time ever in 35 years now of playing saxophone that I ever had any sort of stage fright.
And what was it that caused that?
It was so big. It was such a big deal. There was 18,000 people. Like I'd only ever played at a club, maybe at Bumbershoot or something like that for like 500 people or something. Yeah. There was 18,000 people out in the audience.
That's a big show.
And the opening band was Kid Creole and the Coconuts, of all things. And they're on stage, and I peek around the curtain, and there's a thing the joke that we used to tell was that your brain can't actually process that number of people when it sees them all. So it just goes one too many.
Yeah. It's 1, 2, holy crap.
Right. And that's what my brain just went,
Yeah, yeah. Like you can see the curvature of the earth over the field.
Yeah. I'm just like, I'm a fraud.
Yeah,
they're gonna know I'm a fraud.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're gonna find out this is all just smoke and mirrors.
But the best guys do that. That exact thing you just said.
Yeah.
The best guys do that, Scott, because they are good enough to be there, and everybody gets scared.
Right.
The funny thing is it shouldn't matter, right?
It shouldn't.
I mean, if you can play 500, you can play 500 million.
Yeah.
What's the difference? In fact, it should be easier because they're all faceless and so far away they don't care.
Yeah.
And yet.
But yet,
Yeah.
my brain just went like, oh my God, I'm going to look like a fool in front of all these people, and Ann's going to know, and Scott's going to know, and oh no, this is the worst thing ever. And so I'm like, okay, I got, oh God, what am I going to do? So I go backstage, I go back to the dressing room, and it's like, everybody's hanging out, just talking, telling jokes. And like the band is Ben Smith and Sean Bayless and Howard Leese and Scott
basically
Olsen.
Heart.
And basically it's Heart, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like freaked out. And I'm like, nobody else is freaking out. Why is nobody else freaking out? I'm freaking out. And I think I came in on the horn section came out on the third song or something like that of the set. So we're backstage, the show starts, and I'm just like the tension is just mounting inside me. I can totally feel it. And I walk out on stage and I have my horn and I stand in front of, I have the chart there. I have the horn section next to me and I look down and I look around and I go, oh yeah, no, I totally know how to do this.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it all went away in that instant. And then
did it ever come back?
No, it was just that very first time. And I was just, and I think it was just because it was so much work. I never really like done transcription like that. So it was so much work, like writing charts and
it counted.
And it mattered. Yeah. And I had these guys that like we had rehearsed earlier in the day as a section and we did sound check. But like, I didn't, there was still sort of an element of unknown quality to it. But then we hit and it was awesome. And
what did you open with? I mean, it's funny because you talk about Ann Wilson and my brain, of course, thinks of the Heart, the catalog.
Yeah.
And goes, okay, so what has horns on it? But then I realized it's obviously not every song, but you're going to write parts for it, etc. But then there's, percussion. There's all these other things you can do, right? Did you sing backups? Did you do other stuff like that?
So now I would totally do that. Then I was so young, I didn't really know. So I just did like, well, okay, these songs have horns on them.
Yeah.
And she wanted to do a bunch of covers too that had horns.
Okay.
So like there's some Heart stuff. There was Tall, Dark, Handsome Stranger, which was on Desire Walks On, I think. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was on Bad Animals. I can't remember. And then Even It Up. That had horns.
Which is the best song.
Which is the greatest song.
Yeah.
And that has horns on it. That had the Tower Power horn section on it.
Yeah. It's funny. I didn't know that until just now. Now. I have the LP at home.
Yeah.
I've just never bothered looking at the liner notes and seeing it was Tower
Power. Anne told me these great stories, man, about, so the horns would come in and she was so impressed that these amazing horn players came up.
So like Lenny Pickett and everything?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like she knew all those guys. She knew Tower Power and was so excited, but that they were coming to play on the record. And she brought like a case of wine from her house, and Anne drinks really good wine. And so she brings this.
She can afford really good wine.
She brings this case of wine from the house, and the horn players are like, oh my God, that's amazing. And they reach in and they take it out and they look at the bottle and they're like, we've never seen him without a screw top before.
Really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. It also said like 1852 on this.
Right. So we did Tall, Dark, Handsome Stranger, Even It Up, and we did like River Deep, Mountain High, Tina Turner, which has great horn section stuff on it.
Perfect for Anne's voice too.
Yeah, perfect for her. We did Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself.
Really?
Yeah, which was cool. I mean, Ben and John are really funky, so that sort of laid the foundation for us.
Oh. I wish I had seen this tour now.
Yeah, it was really fun. We did a bunch. I'm trying to remember. I have the chart still. I should probably just go through and figure it out.
Do you have the Even It Up charts?
Yeah, I think so.
So she gave you the original charts and you didn't give them back?
No, I gave her the originals back.
Okay,
I made copies of them.
Okay, I was like, wow, I want to see that too. That's so cool.
But yeah, it was really fun. And we did these 5 shows on bases, and we flew out every week and then flew home. So shows were on Saturday, so we flew out Friday and then played the show on Saturday and flew home. on Sunday. And that was fun. And then she really enjoyed it. And she's like, let's start stringing some more shows together. So we did, this was before there was the whole network of like Indian casinos that had sort of like the large B rooms. 'Cause there was like big theaters in the big cities and crappy clubs.
Yeah.
So there were a few places. There was a resort outside of Sacramento somewhere that we went and played at. And we played at Caesar's Palace in Tahoe. We did 3 nights at Caesar's Palace there.
Wow. That would have been cool.
That was really fun. Altitude. Oh,
sorry. Keep going.
Oh, okay.
I was just checking to see. Sorry, everybody. I was checking to see that there was still battery power left in my recorder.
I have more batteries too if you need batteries.
I'm good. I was trying not to get you to stop, but of course my little keep going signal was the one thing that stopped you, which is great. I'm going to leave it in just because I can. All right. So you're at Caesar's Palace.
So we did Caesar's Palace. That was super fun. And I'm trying to think, honestly, like I can't remember all the shows. We had, I think that we played in Reno somewhere. We did the Hard Rock in Vegas. That was cool. That was a VH1 thing. We got to, so I was on VH1 for, the show was, it was the Fairway to Heaven, VH1 Fairway to Heaven Celebrity Golf Tournament.
I'm going to have to look that up. I'm sure it's on YouTube.
I'm sure probably. And that was an actual Heart show. Nancy came out for that. It was like the real deal.
Wow.
Did
Michael DeRozier play on drums or was it Ben?
No, it was Ben. It was Ben and John on drums and bass, and it was basically Ann's band with Nancy.
Okay.
No, that was, I don't know when did those guys leave?
Like 81.
Yeah, it was like
I just thought maybe it was like a weird sort of reunion. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of bitterness there. And there still is.
There's still a lot of bitterness.
Yeah, I saw Roger a couple of years ago, and we kind of talked about some other stuff. And then there's always that sort of weird I wish it wasn't, but it is, and so we all go on. It's life.
Well, and like I love the guy. So there's those of you that don't know, there's a band called Heart by Heart, which is Michael DeRozier drums and Steve Fossen on bass, who are the founding bass player and drummer from Heart.
Yeah.
And so they have a band called Heart by Heart, and they have some incredibly talented musicians playing, sort of the classic Heart catalog.
And Roger's not in that.
Roger was, I think, in the beginning, but he's doing his own thing.
Heart by heart thing.
Yeah. Well, I think he's trying to build a non-Heart related career.
Yeah, but that's, there's that weird thing now there's time and age and people go, you're past, it's evil.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be the truth. You and I'm going to be 50 in a couple weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. And you're in your 40s.
45,
and yet to me, we're still absolutely kids. Like we could go kill it with the best of them right now.
I think so.
I think we could, but the world would not let that happen. That's the thing. That world controls that. Unless you start a band that is almost a kind of a joke band that focuses on that. And I've thought about this. I think we've had this discussion, which I don't want to talk about on here because I don't want to give my idea away.
Right.
But I love the idea of seeing a band of has-beens and wannabes.
Right.
And having them be just, well, we'll talk about it off the line.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. Anyway. Back to you. Sorry about so you did the Vegas stuff.
Did the Vegas stuff, did the Heart stuff. And then I'm trying to think what the last show was. I mean, we did a couple like corporate gigs, which is a weird thing to do with a national act to do a corporate gig. And then we did that. The only gig that really stands out is the one that just sucked. It was so I had this horn section that was, I did not vet them thoroughly enough beforehand. And it was a 3-piece section. So me and a Barry player and a trumpet player, and it just did not go well. They just they couldn't read particularly well.
Yeah, that's not good when when you're gonna play 3 hours before a show.
And so there was a lot of frantic, God, please learn these parts. Let's go over it one more time, fellas. And I was not happy about that.
Yeah.
But
where was this? Where was this show?
this was at the Texas State Fair in Dallas.
Well, at least it was a fair show.
Yeah, it was totally a fair show.
500 people, 1,000 people.
Yeah, no, it was. There wasn't a lot of people there, and honestly, like so many of these things, the only people that notice are the musicians on stage.
Yeah, of course. It's what kills us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when you get it down to it, these shows, it tends to be music for musicians. I mean, that's why bands like Animals as Leaders exist. It's just to make us happy. It's not for everybody else. It's for us.
I know. Well, that was the conversation that we had in Apollo Creed was that the guitar player was seriously nervous about our potential longevity as a band because so many musicians were coming to our shows.
Yeah, just guys.
It's just guys. It's not going to be any good, man. Like this is never going to survive.
Yeah, and it's the same 12 guys too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm still friends with a lot of those guys, but
so that finished, and then what? I mean, you
so
how did the Stolen Ogre thing happen?
So that finished. That finished because of
Lovemongers, right?
Lovemongers came out of the Lovemongers. So we did a Lovemongers show at the EMP opening, the Experience Music Project Museum in Seattle, which everyone should go to at least once.
It's crazy cool.
It's crazy cool.
Yeah.
And then. And so a singer named Frank Cox, who's a backup singer in the Lovemongers, dear friend of Ann's, knew Michael McMorrow. And so Michael met Brendan Hill, the drummer from Blues Traveler, out on the Horde tour.
Right, because Michael was playing with Taj Mahal.
Right.
Wow. Which is, I mean, that's killer in itself.
I know,
would
right?
love to play with Taj Mahal.
So yeah, he was playing with Taj Mahal, and he met Brendan there, and they did some jamming, and thought that was pretty cool. And Brendan said, "Oh, by the way, I'm moving to Seattle. We should hook up when I could move to Seattle." And so Michael brought Dave Simpson, the guitar player, and Pam, the singer, and then Steve Manning, the bass player, and they all went down to Brendan's dope ass house in Leschi.
Poor Brendan.
Poor Brendan, yeah.
And all his Blues Travelers money.
All his Blues Traveler money. Oh my God. And so they played, and he was like, "I think it would be cool if we had a sax player." And Michael was talking to Frank, and Frank said, "Oh, you should give Scotty a call." And
oh, wow.
so it's just, I was thinking about what it takes to be successful, and I think one of the things that it takes to be successful in any capacity, whether it's business or being a musician or whatever, is try not to be an asshole. Like
it helps to be a good person.
It helps to be a good person, and so I always tried to be a good person. And I mean, talent is good too, but
yeah.
I think most people will hire the slightly less talented nice guy over the insanely gifted, just prick.
So that's how I got those gigs.
That's how you got the gigs.
Because I thought I was a great drummer. I was just the nice guy that they knew, okay, I'm not going to screw him over.
You're a fine drummer, lad.
That wasn't a fish. That's not what I meant.
No.
But that's so true. It's so true. People, I mean, look, I bet you this is my number one podcast. You know why? Because we're just two dudes who like each other, we know each other, and we're having fun.
Yep.
And when people hear that, they want to hear it. I don't know what it is. There's something about the human experience. People want to know what other people do, and there's a curiosity to it, but they want to hear joy. If you don't hear joy, it's like, well, okay, well, I can go feel like crap over here. Why would I listen to crap?
Right.
Those guys are having fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and exactly. And so, yeah, joy is really important. It's hard to do that in the day job.
Yeah.
Because there's all sorts of baggage that goes along with day jobs.
Right.
But I have this great new boss who came from outside of my organization. And so my organization is a very old nonprofit in Seattle. And we are starting to get some new blood into the enterprise, which is great. It's very awesome.
Can you share the name?
It's Group Health.
Okay.
It's Group Health. So Group Health has been around for 70 years, 65 years.
Yeah. Kind of a big deal.
It's kind of a big deal. And we're starting to get people in from outside. which is really cool. Particularly in IT, because group health IT is very much a sort of a legacy sort of thing. We have systems that were written 30 years ago that are still running, and all the developers that wrote them have retired, and nobody writes in those languages anymore. So it costs us.
It's like some form of Sanskrit.
It is. It costs us a ton of money to maintain that stuff. So people work really hard, and it's hard to find joy. But my new boss came from Microsoft, and she's very much like, let's inject some. We need to be having fun here, So let's reduce the stress. Maybe not the stress. Let's reduce the noise, the distractions, and then focus on what we're really good at and try to have fun.
So you said a really important thing just now. And that's the focus, not so much of this podcast, but of my mindset, which says if you want to have success at anything in life, you got to pick the thing you're good at and you just go for it. And you got to go all in.
Right.
So whether it's music or it's business or it's both, right? I mean, look, we can do two things, but going past that, you're starting to cut it, right?
Yeah.
You're starting to kind of cut because, you can say, okay, I got my day job over here and now I'm going to go play saxophone over here. But that's because you have time after work, right? There's no other time except for sleeping time. And if you don't sleep, you die, right?
Right.
So you really only can be good at two things.
Yeah.
And if you're married, well, then maybe not. Then maybe only one thing, right? Which should be your marriage. Anyway, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, it was just that you have to choose something and go all in with it, because if you don't, you're doomed. And the reality is this culture says you got to make money, you got to make money, you got to make money, and you got to own stuff. And you know what? If you go all in and you're happy with what you do, you'll find that it's enough.
Right.
You really will.
Yeah.
I think we're old enough now. You kind of go over that hump where you realize, and you live well, you have a nice home, and all these things are great. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is that you could be settling on being broken, which means you're always striving to have more because nothing is enough and there's no pleasure in your life. And,
right.
And so, just hearing you say that is so huge. Just say, look, just get good at your thing, man, and let's have fun at this.
Right. Right. And that's, yes, let's have fun at it. And it's funny because a lot of my coaching stuff that I do at work, we talk about, how do we find the joy? How do we find fun in this? What do you love about your job? And how do we get you to do that more? And what do you hate about your job? And how do we find somebody else who maybe that's their joy? Let them do that. Right? Because some people just want to go to work and draw a paycheck and they want to do good work.
Yeah.
But they don't want to, they get their joy elsewhere.
I don't think it's some people. I think it's almost everybody.
I think it's almost everybody.
Yeah. Most people just go to work because they gotta, right? That's why we all talk about, Monday,
right.
Friday, all right. You know what I mean? Right?
But
it's nice that you love it.
I have had a lot of times, especially since I started the process improvement stuff and I started consulting and I started coaching. I love going to work, man. I love, especially when I know that there's an opportunity to help somebody be better. I love getting up for that.
Wow.
I don't have any problem, I got to be there at 5 this morning. That's fine.
So that's really interesting to me. Is there how much data, quote unquote, data is involved in your day? Do you do a lot of analytics? Being in IT,
depends.
There's a million different variations on IT. So
right. So, my title is IT consultant, which means, holy crap, I do a lot of stuff. I don't do as much data analysis. It's more sort of process focused. So I have a Scrum Master certification, which is, Agile software development and Scrum. So Agile is the mindset for how to develop software, and Scrum is the project management methodology that you use.
Wow.
To do Agile, or one of the project management methodologies you can use to do Agile. And I love process, man. I love helping teams. I love working with a team, protecting them from noise, trying to keep the volume down around them, and just getting them the tools that they need to do their work and to do great work, and then showcasing and celebrating that work at the end of a project.
You know, it's interesting. I know I keep saying this, but what I find really fascinating is your job basically is a technical job based around people. In other words, it's an awful lot like reading notes on a page and being in a band.
Oh man, that's a comparison I have drawn many times.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just like, wow, you really did find the sort of other dimensional version of being in a band. You're just doing it over here now. Yeah. And amazingly, there's a paycheck.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and the interesting thing is that there is a lot of, they're very analogous things. And when I used to work a day job because it was like, well, I'm not selling 1 million records now yet. So so I'm going to do this thing that pays my rent. And what I found was, it was about 5 years ago that sort of like the shift happened for me, where I realized that what I really wanted to do was not have to worry about money and do music because I loved it.
Yeah.
And it was probably a little bit longer ago than that, but it was about 5 years ago or so that I found the process improvement and consulting, and once my first consulting gig, and this is all internal consulting. It's just I work for Group Health and I'm consulting inside Group Health.
Right.
And my first gig doing that, I was like, oh, I actually don't care how many hours I have to work to do this. This is really fun and this is really challenging. And I like doing this.
Yeah.
And I want because I get to see improvement in my peers, right? I get to see the people I work with grow and get better. And that is an awesome thing to see happen.
So you really are. So the podcast, is called Rockstar Superhero. You really are both. I mean, that's cool because you're the first one that I've interviewed that actually really has gone from one to the other. Are actually in the second half. And you're in a quote unquote job, right? It's not like you're running a nonprofit, or I should say you are. Obviously it's a nonprofit. It's Group Health.
Yeah.
But you're not, meaning it isn't like your passion project. Right. I've left the company and I'm going to retire and I'm going to go teach kids in Bangladesh how to speak English. You know what I mean? It's not that sort of thing. But it's equally valuable because it's obviously Group Health.
Right.
It's a very important thing.
Yeah. We, for years, our mission statement was simply to serve the greatest number. Like, how do we make high quality, affordable healthcare available to as many people in our community as possible?
That's awesome.
And that is a worthy mission.
Absolutely.
To stand behind. And so that isn't our current mission statement. I actually don't know what it is, but in my head, it's to serve the greatest number still. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I think it should be. And we're in the process of getting acquired pending the Office of the Insurance Commissioner.
Oh, can you share this on a podcast?
Yeah, it's public. It's all public record.
Okay, because I didn't know.
So we're in the process of getting acquired by Kaiser Permanente.
Oh, okay.
Which is it's a nationwide nonprofit.
Right.
Group Health and Kaiser have been closely aligned for many years.
Okay.
So it's pending the approval of the Office of the Insurance Commissioner. So we have to wait until November because he's not going to do it until after the election. Okay. He doesn't want whichever way he votes to impact his reelection. So he's just waiting until afterward.
Nice. So you've heard the 80-20 rule.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I believe that there's an 80-20 rule inside of an 80-20 rule, right? And so the meaning that, if you take 20% of the people and you set them aside and now you go to the 80-20, right? All of a sudden you're talking 5% of a population, right? Mm-hmm. And then I believe there's another one. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the whole point is that there's this sort of, if you look at it sociologically, it's where sort of the elite lie, okay?
Right.
But I also believe that elite, and I'm not in that case, we're talking about economics. But in my brain, I'm talking about everything from theory to sociocultural. And the point I'm trying to address is that I believe everybody is 97% badass at something. Just right, like if you say, okay, that person's infused with the ability to play saxophone, or I'm infused with the ability to play drums, or they're infused to paint, right? Whatever. Right. But there's 3% in my head that's missing from everybody, and the only place we find it is in others. Which is why at least as a musician, I'm drawn to being in bands, because I can't do it myself.
Right.
I don't want to do it by myself. It wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be as good as it could be if I had you playing sax and Jimmy playing bass, and you know what I mean, and all those variables. And so I'm curious, in the 97-3 rule of Rob Jones,
right.
Okay, what does Scott? Let me say this right. What does Scott Adams not do well? What don't you do well that you need other people to help you with? Or what do you want to learn? Like, what do you suck at? Because you're so good at so many things.
What do I suck at? That is a really good question. I feel like I'm at a job interview now suddenly. Like,
nice. Yeah. Come work to me.
What?
And we just killed them.
Yeah, I just broke my brain, man.
Oh my God!
I suck at answering these questions spontaneously.
I suck at answering questions. I was in the bathroom rehearsing the entire thing, and I was like, "What? You can ask me this? Bloop." No, How deep do you want to go down the rabbit hole, man?
Well,
it depends on how much time you have. I'm good with going down as deep as you want. I just, you want me to lead?
No. Pause it for just 1 second. Actually,
okay.
This is the part of the podcast where Scott decides he needs a break and to use the restroom because you gotta go, and when you gotta go, you really, really, really gotta go. So with that. And
now back to our program. So the best part about this is, if you one of my interviews recently, the guy's wife called right in the middle of the interview.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Okay, I got to stop this," right? And so I ended up cutting it in where it's like, this is the moment where the podcast got interviewed. You know what I mean? It was just really silly. I don't know why I'm telling you that, but it's funny. So where were we? So I'll cut this inappropriately.
You asked me a really
difficult
question. Like, what do I suck at?
Yeah, what do you suck at, Scott? What do you suck at?
So I struggle with being as disciplined as I coach others to be.
Wow. I love this.
Yeah. So the way to achieve improvement, like when I coach others at work, you need to be rigorous and disciplined, and you need to, here are a set of tools that you can use,
right?
And you need to consistently apply these over and over again.
Yeah.
Even something as simple as the 5 whys. Keep asking why, keep asking why, keep asking why, keep asking why. And I struggle with that discipline, not so much with work stuff, but like in my own personal life. Like, okay, so we're talking about the weight loss thing,
yeah,
right? And we did this whole 30 is what it's called, and it's a 30-day sort of reset of your digestive system, basically, where you don't eat anything except for lean protein and vegetables, and you cut out all sugar, all dairy, all legumes,
basically everything good.
Basically everything good. No alcohol. Oh my God, no alcohol. Oh.
Yeah.
For 30 days. Do you know how many gigs I had in those 30 days?
It's like there's no good time to start.
There's never a good time to start. But we did it, and it was the first time ever that I think I have actually been that disciplined.
Wow.
about something like that.
In your personal life.
In my personal life. Well, I mean, I'm pretty disciplined about not doing drugs anymore, but that is
Did you? So no, we got to go back here. So, the drug thing. So what have you done?
drugs.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because I've only done pot. I've never done anything hard ever. Never.
oh, okay.
Pot and alcohol, like tequila and stuff like that. I've never done shrooms. I've never done heroin.
Sure.
I've never done cocaine. I've never done any of that.
So I love mushrooms, man. Mushrooms were so much fun.
I'm sure, but I'd get addicted. I'm sure. I'd be like, this is the greatest thing ever.
Well, it's funny. It's the greatest thing ever, but it's so hard on your body that you go like, it's the greatest thing ever that I shouldn't do every day. Like you feel like the next day you feel like, oh,
really?
Okay. I had a friend that we used to joke about. It takes 3 days to do mushrooms, right? Because it's the first day is just working up the courage to finally eat them, and then a whole day you lose a whole day to eat the mushrooms,
Which is why I haven't done it.
right. And then the third day is recuperating from taking the mushrooms, and frankly, I don't have 3 days anymore. Like that just couldn't be done.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, my fear is that if I got in the middle of one of these trips, that it would be scary or so uncomfortable, and then I would realize, oh my God, I'm going to be stuck here for a day. I just can't. I can't.
No, it's when you're in it and you think it's going to be forever. I'm going to be this way forever. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I have to go to work on Monday. I can't be this way forever.
But is it so? So it just lasts and lasts and lasts, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a few hours.
It's like 5-6 hours.
It's a few hours of really intense, and it's an hour or so ramp up, and then a few hours as it tapers off. But yeah, I mean you're looking at 8 hours pretty much.
And for the most part, at least what I know, and look, I'm clearly clueless. But from what I know, aren't the mushrooms basically mushrooms from cow shit? I mean, aren't they basically mushrooms that have been in cow patties?
I mean, if you want to be that way, sure. Yeah.
No, but aren't they?
Some of them are. I mean, it really depends. Like, so I was never a forager, so I would just, I would just go buy them from somebody.
Here, hopefully this doesn't have any PCP on it.
Right. Yeah, I really enjoyed them. I did them a fair amount. I knew a guy who used to buy ounces of mushrooms from him, and just keep them in the freezer and munch them here and there. I did. We went out to Pioneer Square with some friends one time to see. It was somebody's 21st birthday, and it was when the square was happening. There was like 12 clubs and joint cover, and I knew every single doorman because I was playing in the square.
Rat Boy,
right? Rat Boy.
I miss Rat Boy.
And so we got stamps, and then we proceeded to go to every single bar in Pioneer Square, and drink at every single bar in Pioneer Square. Yeah. And we ended up at the Phoenix, and at the below ground was some DJ or something like that, but above ground was Fishbone.
Oh, I might have been at that show.
And I walked in, and Fishbone is playing, and I can't believe that I'm here, and Fishbone is playing, and it's like just part of the joint cover, and it's not a separate show. And I am fairly drunk at this point, and I'm thinking I'm not gonna remember this show if I don't sober up somehow. And I put my hand in my coat pocket, and in my coat pocket is a baggie with like 3 little mushroom stems in it. And I'm like, why are these in my coat pocket? I don't even know. I'm going to eat them now and sober. So yeah, Tripping Balls, I Saw Fishbone is one of my favorite.
That should be an album cover, Tripping Balls.
Yeah, and I used to play in a band with a coke dealer, and so that was always a good way to blow all your pay before the gig started. But none of those things got their hooks into me the way speed got its hooks into me.
Wow, I didn't even know this.
Yeah, and so I was about 2 years that are just sort of like gone from my memory. I mean, like I have sort of like my key highlight memories, but like I don't have any sort of like sense of continuity. Like a memory will come back to me, and I'll be like, oh wow, I don't even know. I wonder what year that happened. Like,
so would this have been late 90s or the early 90s?
No, this was
2000s.
No, God, this was later than that. This was early 2000s. This was
like when when we started playing in Stolen Ogre together.
No, I don't think it didn't quite have its hooks into me then. It was more sort of like towards the end of Stolen Ogre. So it was probably more 2003 is probably when I started. And then 2004 and 2005 was bad.
Wow. So those are those lost years because I actually lost track of you at that point of time too.
Yes. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's so,
I mean,
I'm glad you survived.
Right. Yeah, me too. No, I lost, I think I got fired from every band except one. And the only reason I didn't get fired from that is because Jimmy's wife decided that I was a project worth saving.
Wow.
And she said, Jimmy, your job is babysitting Scott.
Wow.
And then I lost my day job. I lost my relationship of 11 years ended. The house that we had to sell the house that we were living in. Yeah, I lost pretty much everything.
Weren't you working for a drug, like a place you would go if you have drug issues? Weren't you working for I can't think of the word all of a sudden. This happens to me all the time anymore. All of a sudden I'm just old and it's like I have no mental acuity. I can use the word acuity.
Right.
But when it comes to a simple word like dog or whatever, right? I just lose it. But weren't you working for a time being at like an overdose center or something like that?
No.
Okay, I'm confusing you with somebody else I know.
Yeah. No, that was...
You know, like working a drug rehab place or something like that.
God, rehab would have been great. I totally should have done that. That was... I sort of hit... I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I buy into like the concept of rock bottom.
Sure.
Like, because I think you can have various stages of rock bottom.
Yeah. The true rock bottom is inches away from death.
Yeah, and
nobody even knows where they're at when they're there.
It's so hard to come back from that.
Yeah.
You know, and so I got to a place where I just hated, like every time I scored, I hated it. I wasn't enjoying getting high at all. Like there was no joy in it at all. And all I was doing was self-medicating, right? Like there was depression from, the time and energy and effort that we invested in Ogre not panning out. I mean, and frankly, like any of these things would just be rationalizations.
Sure.
Like, I mean, I started that journey voluntarily. Like it wasn't like
yeah. It's all that fault.
Yeah.
No, I get it.
And so, and I hate that. Although I do sort of wish that, I had done some sort of like formal, like inpatient thing or done like an NA or something like that, just because, you have a set of rules that you can fall back on.
Right.
So I just white knuckled it. Right. It was horrible. I hated it. Like every second it was like, I'm miserable and I'm dying inside, and I could go spend $80 and not feel like I was dying inside.
Yeah.
Although I would be literally dying inside.
Yeah. You take it. And that's actually the thing.
But I wouldn't actually feel like I was dying inside.
Right.
And so it was terrible and it sucked. And then I had to reach out and mend fences, you know, with people.
Yeah.
And that was hard and terrible. But I wanted to play saxophone and I wanted to have a relationship with my family. And so it was hard. And there was something you posted on Facebook a while back, and you said, and I said something about,
oh, I know what it is.
Let me tell you my philosophy about putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. It's about my dad dying.
Yeah. It was, so when I was a kid, I think it was a DC comic book called Sergeant Rock.
I remember.
And Sergeant Rock was this badass NCO infant, right, in World War II, who was indestructible and was an amazing natural leader. And he killed all the Germans.
Yeah, he was G.I. Joe, but the cool version.
Right. And he, I don't know why this it always stuck into my head for some reason. And the line in the comic book was something like, keep your mouth shut and keep following the back of the man in front of you, especially if that back belongs to Sergeant Rock. but I just, something about keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep going no matter what. And I'm Norwegian, and we have a very stubborn, intractable streak in us.
Yeah.
And so that became my thing. Like whenever it was hard, and it was hard a lot in the early days, there was, because once you get the physical withdrawal thing, like the mental crap is just horrible. Like, and just, you just be in the fetal position crying because, you're suddenly feeling all the things at once.
Right. You're actually feeling human all of a sudden again.
Yeah. And so as I was looking for work because I wasn't working and I was going to get kicked out of my apartment, and it was the hardest thing ever to just get up and go to work. And I finally got this temp job, but it was on the east side. It was in Bellevue, and I had to take a bus because I didn't have a car. And so I had to take this bus from Lake City to the east side, and it was a 2-hour
Oh, yeah, that's brutal.
switching buses, and it was 2 hours of commuting in rush hour on the bus. And but every day the alarm would go off, and I would get up and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then, it sucked and it sucked and it sucked. And then it sucked a little less.
Yeah.
And then, and so I read all these books about like cognitive behavioral therapy and some of the different ways that people process, learning how to like consciously process emotions. And so it was, oh, I'm feeling something. And so I started asking myself this default question. I was like, I'm feeling a very strong reaction to this. And then I would say, is this reaction that I'm feeling the reaction that a sane person would have? Or is this something that a crazy person would feel? And I go, I think a crazy person would feel this. I'm going to let this go.
Wow.
And so it was hard. It was this very sort of mechanical thing of like, I just have to keep going. I have to keep going because I didn't want to be homeless. So I just had to keep going.
Yeah. Do the stuff you don't want to do.
To the stuff that I don't want to do. And eventually it got to a place where it was like things were okay. And I enjoyed this. And then, playing in bands, and it was like, this is actually fun, or this is actually entertaining. You know what rock bottom was for me? My personal rock bottom? I slept through a gig.
Whoa.
I missed a gig.
Yeah, that would suck. That would be incredibly embarrassing.
So the pattern was I would score, and then I would be awake for 72 hours, and then I would sleep for 24 hours.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Sleep is really good, kids. Go to sleep every night.
Yeah.
Your brain does horrible things when it doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
You start hallucinating at about 36 to 48 hours. Your brain starts just making crap up.
Really?
Oh yeah. You hear voices, you see stuff out of the corner of your eyes, you see things moving, like, yeah, it's terrifying. So go to sleep every night. It's a good thing.
Wow.
And then
you slept through.
And so it worked out that one of my crash cycles was over a gig, and I woke up and there was like, 9 voicemails on my phone and a gajillion text messages. And I'm like,
and they're 12 hours old.
And they're 12 hours old. And I'm like, crap, just freaking out. And I had to go to the band and say, I have a problem and I'm so sorry. And I'm going to figure this out. And it was horrible. That conversation alone was just the worst thing.
Was that a Stolen Ogre thing?
No. It was this band called Mirage. Oh. It was like a 9-piece. It was cover band, classic rock and R&B and stuff like that. And
you were important.
And I was important. I was the, master blaster sax player. And yeah, it was horrible. But so through all of that, I learned, it's funny. I say that I have a problem with discipline, but what I'm talking about is actually really discipline. Like it's a very principled thing. Right. And because I had to sort of make up the rules of engagement for myself.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have like the structure of a 12-step program or any sort of formal rehab or even formal therapy, which I probably should look into. But
this could be the start.
This could be the start, right? I had to make these rules up sort of on the fly, right? And so every time I was in a new situation, there'd be an evaluation of like, what's an acceptable thing? Like I quit drinking for a long time because it was like I had to evaluate like, is this going to, you know, make me spiral?
Like a gateway sort of.
Yeah, is this going to be a gateway and make me spiral?
Reintroduce you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, and it's funny, like I almost never think about it anymore. Like it's not like it doesn't weigh on me every day. But there'll be times like I think about Matt. We talk about Matt Shaw and Matt stuck through that. And stuck with me through that. And it was like, you know, I would love to be able to tell him how great I'm doing now because he'd be so proud. Because he was one of the few that's, you know, stood by me.
Yeah. He's been gone a long time now. Almost 5 years.
That's crazy.
I know. That was one of the most heartbreaking days for me. I heard he was, I didn't even know he was sick until two weeks before he died. I didn't even know.
Oh no.
And so I would have visited him. I never had a chance to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And I when I found out, I was getting ready to go out of town for a business, and so I had a whole week, and I was like, okay, well, I hope you know, it's not as bad as I think it is. Because when he was at the place he died at, that's like where you go to die. I mean,
right.
You don't go.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
It's a, you know, what do you call it? Place, you know, hospice.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. And so I looked it up and I'm like, oh my God, he's really, really, really bad. And then, so I called the, you know, place and I said, hey, I'd like to visit Matt Shaw. And he goes, okay, well, his family's here, so you can't come today. But I would just suggest you give us a call in the morning and then we can schedule time for you to come by. Well, when I heard that, my brain was like, okay, well, things are okay. That wasn't the case at all.
Right.
His family was there because he was going to die. I mean, he was within hours.
Oh.
And so I called the next morning and it sucks. It's so hard to actually, because I mean, I really loved Matt and I called and the guy, he did the classic like movie move, right? I go, yeah, can I have Matt Shaw's room? And it's like 15 seconds of silence,
no.
and I'm like, no. And he goes, Matt isn't available. He literally said that, and I go, dude, you can just tell me he died, didn't he? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, and I go, okay, and I just hung up, and I just cried.
Yeah.
You know, because it sucked. It sucked so much.
Yeah.
You know, and then Rick Parashar died a couple years ago, and that sucked.
Yeah.
And did you know John Bogosian? John was Barry Manilow's guy and worked with Nikki Sixx and did a whole bunch of stuff in LA. And then he went and took over the engineering school at Music Works.
Oh, okay.
So John became a close friend of mine. John is a Heroin guy. And he came to my house. My wife and I were just talking about him the other day because he came to our house about a week before he died. And he just had dinner with us. And you could tell he was sick.
Yeah.
And anyway, he was just this guy who just needed somebody to love, man. He just needed somebody to love him. Somebody to love him. And he just didn't see all the levels around him. He didn't recognize his friends cared about him.
Right.
You know, again, because he's so sick. And then I was at work and I got a call and they're like, John's dead. And I'm like, what do you mean John's dead? You know, and he said he died at Benaroya. He died in the bathroom, dude, of a heroin overdose on the floor at Benaroya Hall.
Oh, God.
So, and nobody found him for like 3 days because he was down there for something, like he was doing sound for, you know, I don't know, an opera or whatever happens in Benaroya, right? One of the performances.
Yeah.
And he went into the bathroom, shot up, and died on the floor. And they found him when they went in to actually, you know, they're like, what happened to John? Well, I don't know, but you know what I mean? And it sucks.
Man, that's horrible.
Yeah, so my three of my 4 producer friends who got me gigs and got me, you know what I mean? I couldn't even get them anymore even if I wanted to.
Yeah.
It's like I can't tell anybody all the cool stuff I did because they'd never believe it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
Drugs suck, kids.
Drugs are terrible, man. They're really fun at the beginning. It's like, oh, this is great. And I can, you know... I was working construction and just for myself doing like handyman stuff because it was, you know, I already lost my day job.
Yeah.
So I was just like picking up stuff here and there, and I was friends with a bunch of realtors, and they got me a bunch of like handyman stuff, and so I was doing that stuff, but that crap is hard work, man. It's physically exhausting.
It's
and
so hard.
And then I was trying to, you know, gig at night and trying to teach. You know, I was teaching lessons and stuff, and you know, it was just a lot of work, and then things weren't going well in my, you know, anywhere.
I just can't believe this. It's funny because I've known you so long. And I mean, it's not like we hang out all the time, but I mean, I would like to think we're pretty good friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we saw Shining together, man.
We did see Shining.
By the way, kids,
I love
that's
you,
another
Jørgen.
thing. Yeah.
I love you, man.
Yeah. I'm gonna hit Jørgen on this podcast, dude.
I'm totally gonna go. I'm totally gonna go to Norway just for the express purpose of seeing Shining.
Oh my God,
at some point.
They are so sick. It's so funny because we went to that show, and I like how when I first asked you to go to the show, you're like, yeah, I'm down for some like black metal because that other band, the Swedish Shining, is a black metal band.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, if you haven't heard the first podcast I put out where I interviewed Jørgen Munkeby, that band is insane, and I'm telling you, we saw them in this little club. You know, we saw them at El Corazon.
Yeah.
And there's like 25 people.
Oh my God, it was so amazing. I'm just standing right. I haven't seen a rock show up against the stage in like forever.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years at least.
Yeah.
And
And Jørgen was sick. He had the flu.
He had the flu.
And he killed.
And
that guitar player.
Oh, I thought he was going to crack somebody in the head with his headstock, man.
Yeah. You guys got to see Shining. Even if you hate the music, the energy of the band is so insane. It's so much fun. Like, that's my dream. You know, I don't know if you heard the podcast, but when I was asking Jørgen, he said, Shining's not a band. It's Jørgen and session guys.
Oh.
Those are all session guys.
Oh.
And I know. I was like, what? And so then I was like, you're telling me that I got a chance.
Yeah.
Right? That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, I told my wife said, if you got to play drums in Shining, we'd move to Norway. I know. It's not going to happen.
No.
The drummer, that kid, oh my God, he's such a good drummer.
Yeah.
And, but I am hoping to hang out with Jørgen when they come to LA here in a couple months.
Oh, they're coming to LA?
Well, not the band, but he's coming because he's going to start work on the new album.
Oh.
So I'm going to call you up and like, dude, let's go to LA
Yeah, okay.
and hang out with Jørgen
Yeah.
for a couple days.
Sure, why not?
I can handle that. If you let us, Jørgen, we will come.
Right.
We will buy you lots of food. Just let us come and hang out and watch your process. So well, thanks for sharing all that. I can't believe I know we got to cut it, and we've been talking for a while, but I wasn't expecting you to be so candid, and that's awesome because this is exactly what I want. I want real discussions.
Right. Well, so it's funny you say that. Like, one of the things that I'm terrible at is, okay, here's one of the things I'm terrible at. Man, I should have led with this. This is
yeah.
this
You
is
shouldn't have
much
gone
better.
down the drug road.
I'm bad at small talk. Like, people talk, you meet people that, whatever, at an airport or at a bar or whatever, and they want to talk about sports or the weather or whatever. Like, coworkers, colleagues, right? The chit chat before a meeting, like, I don't want to. I know enough about football that I can have a conversation about the Seahawks. I know. I played Little League baseball, so I can kind of talk about baseball.
Yeah,
but
I'm right there with you.
But like, I want to talk about like real stuff, man.
Yeah,
I want to talk about like what freaks you out. What are you scared of? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah,
like those are the things that matter.
Yeah,
and I have very little patience for that sort of superficial that people put on this like veneer, right? They like to protect themselves. I think probably is why they do it. Yeah. And I just want to be real, right?
Yeah. Well, Facebook exposes this, Scott. It's interesting because the reality is you've heard this. We've all heard this. Like the sum of your life is found in the 5 closest friends, right? Have you ever heard this? Like your 5 closest friends are basically what you are the most of, meaning it's kind of a you are what you eat, you are who you hang out with.
Right.
And your 5 closest friends are going to be the biggest influencers. And pretty much everybody else is chaff.
Interesting.
Nobody wants to hear this, but the reality is, you know, people go onto Facebook and they're like, look at me, I've got 1,715 friends. No, you have 3 friends and 1,712 acquaintances, and of those 712, 1,705 are people you knew once, when, if, because.
Right.
You just don't. If you had that much time, well, you'd be a superhero. It's impossible to have enough time to actually have relationships with those people. So they're very surface, and so I think the answer is those people at work, they're nice and they're kind and they deserve love, and you give them as much love as you're capable of giving, but they have surface relationships, surface conversations, because they don't know you very well, and vice versa. You don't know them very well, and you kind of can't commit to more because you got, you know, you have your own relationships at home and your own real, and you know what I mean, and your focuses.
I know. It just seems, it's so funny because I spend, you know, 50, 60 hours a week with those people. A lot of my life is spent with those people.
Yeah.
And actually my immediate team, we're pretty close.
Yeah.
We have,
and that makes sense.
We have more real conversations, but yeah, definitely. So I always try to start, I fall back on my facilitator training, right? And I always try to start meetings with, I call them hooplas. Some people call them icebreakers. It's just a little like invest part of yourself in the conversation, but you know, it's not a big emotional investment, but it's a little emotional investment.
Right.
Where did you go for summer vacation? Or, you know, what did you do? You know, where did you go to high school? Or, you know, right? One of those things.
Right.
I have a big bag of pennies, and we'll for big events we'll pull out. Where we have multiple days, we'll do a different hoopla every morning. So the penny game is always fun. There's a couple dollars worth of old pennies in there, and so you give everybody a penny and go, okay, look at the year on the penny, and what were you doing in this year?
It's like 1712.
Right. Well, hopefully you don't have 17.
1959. I think I was still sperm.
Right. Well, let's see. My dad was 19.
Yeah, exactly. No. That's a cool idea. I love stuff like that. Just any way to spur, you know, imagination. And I have an institute. I don't know if you know about this, but I have a sort of a business networking, peer advisory mentorship group. Okay, and I have a couple of them here in the Seattle area, and that's what we do. We sit for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we come up with curious ways to provoke, instigate conversation.
Nice.
And it's a way to get to know people at a really deep level, whether it's, you know, spiritual level, personal, physical, whatever you want to call it. And it's because when you get down to it, let's say you're a real estate agent. I know you're not, but let's say you are. Well, there's thousands of you,
Sure.
right? And why would I do business with you? Well, I won't.
Right.
Unless I trust you, befriend you, whatever. There's always got to be that intangible thing that occurs. And so these groups are designed to get to know each other on a very intimate way, in a very intimate way, excuse me. So the natural byproduct is you'll do business.
Right.
And it's great. I love it. And so, yeah, people matter, man. I mean,
absolutely.
The bottom line is, you know, I say it all the time. You're not going to care when you die what car you have. You're not going to be thinking about that. You're going to be looking at your loved ones, and it's going to be a very bittersweet moment because you realize you're leaving them, and that sucks.
Right.
It sucks for them, and it sucks for you.
Yeah.
That's tough stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so before I let you go, anything you want to plug? Are you doing any cool stuff? I know you're working with Spike and the Impalers.
Yeah, so we got Spike and the Impalers, and
which is a very popular.
It's a very popular band.
Yeah, very, very, very popular.
Although if this comes out before the weekend,
don't sleep through the gig, dude.
Come to our show this weekend.
It actually comes out tonight. Yeah, I mean, I kind of got behind the 8 ball, so I'm gonna produce this tonight.
Wow!
And it'll be out at 12 midnight tonight. So it comes out Wednesday, the 14th of September. So people who do hear it and you live in the area, come to
the Point Casino in Kingston Friday the 16th and Saturday the 17th.
Of September.
Of September.
So if you hit us in October, you're screwed.
Yeah.
That's a great show.
It is a great show. It's really fun.
You got Jeff playing drums.
And Lynn on bass and let's see.
Who's the girl? I don't know her.
Susan. Oh my God, Susan Kendall.
I'm sorry, you're gonna get
I'm gonna get in trouble. Oh
Yeah.
my God, she's gonna kill me. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great singer.
Okay.
And she does a handful of tunes, sings a lot of backup. And then we have used to have Rick Knotts from Rail playing guitar. Now we have Manuel Moraes. Yeah.
Rick Knotts was in Rail? How did I not know this?
Did you not know that? Yeah.
How did I not know this? This is twice in like a month I've had a conversation about Rail on the podcast. I loved Rail.
Yeah, Rick Knotts. Because the thing when you did with Jonathan, he talked about Rick Knotts.
Correct, but my brain. So I guess what I'm saying. I should say it. I said this backwards. I knew Rick Knotts was in Rail. I didn't know Rick Knotts was in Spike and the Impalers.
He was in Spike and the Impalers.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he played a few years. He did 2 or 3 years with us. Yeah,
So when I saw you at Snoqualmie, Rick was there.
Was that when?
2013?
Maybe
2013. Because it was a year before we put King Jr. together.
Yeah,
we did that in 2014.
I think Rick was in that band. Yeah, I think he was.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody listening is like, I don't know who any of these people
Right, I don't know who these people are.
It doesn't matter.
We're going to talk about musicians you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully you guys got something out of it. I mean, it's funny. This did evolve into Scott Adams, A Cautionary Tale. It totally did. I'm going to totally put it that way, too. Heart, comma, A Cautionary Tale. Right. Man, I love you, buddy.
I love you, too, man. And here's the thing. It doesn't have to be a cautionary tale because you can. I think the thing that I learned was that there's almost nothing that I can't come back from.
Yeah.
Right? Because it takes a certain amount of self-confidence, I think, to be able to come back, but you do. You can come back from anything. Like it's never as bad as you think it is.
Yeah.
Like, and I thought it was pretty bad, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So I mean, my cautionary tale is there's people that had it worse than me.
Well, sure, but a lot of those people don't make it.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, that's true.
But they don't. I mean, yeah, they did have it worse. I mean, I think it's funny. You talk about the your bottom sleeping through that gig, but yeah, I mean, I think if you go past that, if you go darker, right? I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with your psychological spark. Meaning, Scott Adams always was a good guy, and so when you went through that whole crap storm, the good guy was trapped, but was still there.
Right.
And the good guy stopped you and said, no, I want to stay around.
Right.
And stopped you before you went over the cliff. Really, I mean, you got pulled back by the scruff of your neck, bro.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
So if you don't believe in God, now you do. That's the Lord talking there, reaching down from heaven. You're mine.
It was a trick.
All this time. All right, bro. Well, be good. Thanks for letting me come to your house and hang out.
Yeah, man.
And yell into a microphone. And this has been really cool. So thank you, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, rock and roll.
Right on.